art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations?
People.
Yeah, it is, because every chip got a number, and the number corresponds to the name and the picture. That's the way it is, yeah, it is.
As tiny as a single grain of rice, a microchip like this is about to become a part of...
You may consider lining up for hours at the Apple Store to get your hands on the new iPhone 6, but would you insert a chip in one of those hands to use the device?
In the book of Revelation, anyone who does not worship the beast or worship this man or bow as he is the dictator of the last world leader, etc., through counterfeit miracles the false prophet will do, is beheaded. And of course, this gets into the mark of the beast system, which is a combination of a political mark and a religious mark and a social mark and a buying and selling mark. It's a little combination of everything. What's kind of scary about that, and a lot of people do not know this, and I'm not telling a rumor here. I've talked to the man who was on the plane with the doctor that invented this. I talked to a state senator in a state that knew it was true and is trying to pass a law that it will not happen in his state. 3 senators who heard about this. One of them was kind of a liberal who said, boy, that sounds too much like the book of Revelation. But a lot of people don't know that there is the availability now that starting, it could start in 2014, but by 2017, is to have everybody do away with everybody's health care, put you on government health care, and put a chip. It's called a health care chip with all your information in your right hand, because all the scanners will be right-handed scanners. And so people need to wake up. See, we're sleeping. And I don't know that America has to go that way. I think that if God's people rose up and said, we're not going that way. Oh, yeah.
Can a microscopic tag be implanted in a person's body to track his every movement? There's actual discussion about that. You will rule on that, mark my words, before your tenure is over. Can brain scans be used to determine whether a person is inclined toward criminality or violent behavior? You will rule on that.
That will be implanted, that people will stand in line and in queues for it to have, so that ultimately we will have in our body. Now we're having little tats, tattoos, little biometrics, all of them leading to the ultimate goal, and that is an RFID, a radio frequency identification or similar chip, to be placed subcutaneously. And that chip, Lindsay, will have everything about you there.
Upload his consciousness. We can save him.
Not like this.
It's down. It's him.
Your friends crossed the line. They don't know the danger.
This is astounding.
So how do we fight it?
You're gone.
Where are you going?
Everywhere.
God made man in his own image. God intended for man to become one with God. We are going to become one with God. Cloning and the reprogramming of DNA is the first serious step in becoming one with God.
This issue is going to dominate our global politics this century. This is the issue that will color the century. As we merge with machines, and I think it's inevitable that we will transform into something new.
Evolution is a spiritual process. It moves us closer to the ideal of God. I mean, what is God? God is described as being unlimited in intelligence, creativity, love, beauty.
We humans are going to start linking with each other and become this meta-intelligence. And we will eventually become an interconnection of the entire human race. And we will become godlike once you plug into that global network and you know the thoughts and feelings of millions or billions of people. To unplug yourself can be so lonely.
At this moment in our civilization, we can create cybernetic individuals who, in just a few short years, will be completely indistinguishable from us. Which leads to an obvious conclusion. We are the gods.
In medical news tonight, a chip the size of a grain of rice could save your life.
I've just been chipped myself. It's not a painless process, but it doesn't last too long, not too difficult. Minor surgical procedure.
New microchip technology now makes it possible for the emergency room staff to find out about your medical history at the touch of a computer key.
At some point, we're all going to have RFIDs. It might be even in our fingers, where they require it with everything on it.
Instead of carrying credit cards or money, we will probably be implanted with chips.
The goal of the federal government is to nationalize health care. Friend, I don't care what you hear, that's the bottom line, where they will take total control. But here's the question, why? In the 1990s, I was preaching in Florida. I went to a man's house. This man knew of something that was being invented. And he said to me, he says, the space shuttle's up there right now. This guy had a satellite, he had all kinds of equipment, and he actually talked to the space shuttle, and I sat in a chair, and he's talking to the guys through a computer. He worked with satellites. This guy was a genius, but he was a real country fella. It really surprised me. It's like he just, looked like he couldn't come out of the rain backwards. He's a genius, I could probably say that about me too, so anyway, it doesn't matter. But here's what happens. He says, this is in 1995, I believe, 96. He said, you know about the chip? And I said, no. So he explains to me that there's a chip the size of a grain of rice with a lithium battery that will hold information that will be placed here, there, on the right hand, or right above the hairline. The body heat charges up the lithium battery. And I'm thinking, what are they going to do with that? He says, well, you'll see one day. He said, one day the federal government of the United States and probably the entire world will have a track system in this chip, and they will know everywhere you are. He said, now think about that. If something happens to your child, why, immediately you'll know where they are.
Clean getaway. But they're wrong. Bank officials have hidden microchips inside the bags of stolen money. The chips enable officers to track these crooks wherever.
We need some system for permanently identifying safe people.
While you were sleeping, everyone in the city was installed code. It was a brilliant idea by Dr. Cocteau that an organically bioengineered microchip be sewn into the skin. Sensors all over the city can zero in on anyone at any time.
I can't even conceive a visual of what you police officers did before it was developed.
We work for a living. This fascist crap makes me want to puke.
What do you think you're scratching, caveman? You really think we'd let you go without control? Your code was implanted the second you...
A lot of advances in wearables, but there's still some fundamental problems that we haven't solved. Like one of them is the mechanical mismatch between humans and electronics, right? So electronics are boxy and rigid, humans are curvy and soft. That's a mechanical mismatch problem. Well, a researcher at the University of Illinois, his name is Dr. Rogers, what he discovered is that he could use standard CMOS techniques to make islands of high-performance silicon connected by accordion-like structures that would allow it to stretch up to 200% and still be performing. And what he did is he founded a company and they started making electronic tattoos. So I'm wearing one here on my arm.
Do we have
Here.
a camera to get a...
This is a developmental system made by MC10, and it has an antenna and some sensors embedded in it. And what we plan to do is work with them to advance a tattoo that could be used for authentication. Now, it may be true that 10 to 20-year-olds don't want to wear a watch on their wrist, but you can be sure that they'll be far more interested in wearing an electronic tattoo, if only to piss off their parents. Right?
And that can have a design, right? Because
Sure.
they would certainly want some kind of cool design.
Options, options. And that's something that you wear, but you could also imagine including authentication in just your daily habits. So I take a vitamin every morning. What if I could take vitamin authentication?
What?
Vitamin authentication. Look, I have one right here. Well, here, I'll let you hold it. Would you like to hold it?
I'll hold it.
Okay. So this,
You guys see it?
this pill has a small chip inside of it with a switch. It also has what amounts to an inside-out potato battery. When you swallow it, the acids in your stomach serve as the electrolyte, and they power it up, and the switch goes on and off. And it creates an 18-bit ECG-like signal in your body, and essentially your entire body becomes your authentication token. Yes, this is true. Okay?
Okay, but...
Okay, so wait. So it's really true. So what this means is that that becomes my first superpower. I really want this superpower. It means that my arms are like wires, my hands are like alligator clips. When I touch my phone, my computer, my door, my car, I'm authenticated in. First.
I can't believe you just paid with this hand. Like, you just literally put your hand up, and you're good to go. Like, that's crazy.
Hi, my name's Charlie Warzel. I'm a senior writer with BuzzFeed News. And in order to see what the future of money looks like, I decided to live for a month just paying for things with my phone. And somewhere along the line, I ended up getting a microchip implanted inside my hand to see if I could be the first person in the world to pay for something out in the real world using just their hand. I basically wanted to try to download as many apps onto my phone as possible and make sure that I could use alternative currencies and try to skirt cash or credit cards into my experiment, I ended up going to Sweden. Sweden happens to be way far ahead of the United States when it comes to getting rid of cash. I ended up meeting with some people who are really active in the biohacking community and found that you could actually implant an RFID NFC chip in your hand.
So take a deep breath with me and exhale.
And so I figured if I could put it in my hand, maybe I'd be able to pay for something with my hand.
That was it. Breathe.
Yeah.
Keep breathing.
How's it feel?
It's like pinchy. It definitely hurt like way more than they said it was going to. It looks sort of like a grain of rice or like a pill that's in my hand.
I think the idea of using a microchip implant in one's hand to be able to make a payment, I do question the mainstream application of it, but I really think there might be other ways where that might come to fruition, not necessarily through like a surgical implant, but through other kind of integrations with the body.
So once everything healed, I decided that I needed to start focusing on how to make this chip work. And I really wanted to become the first person to ever pay for a meal at a restaurant with their hand. Eventually, I stumbled across a Venmo engineer who said that he could help me with my task. What they decided is that they would put my Venmo unique user ID onto my chip, which would basically make it so that any phone would recognize my hand as a Venmo app.
I'm gonna write your secret token for Venmo, and you're gonna go up there, they're gonna scan your hand, put how much we owe, that's it.
Takes a second. Here we go. So you're good to go. That was so sick, dude. That was sick.
Yes!
That was gnarly.
That was insane!
We actually accomplished what we set out to do, and I kind of couldn't believe that it was ever going to happen. Like, I thought I got this thing jammed in my hand for nothing. My hand is paying for everything today.
This is not science fiction. This pill is actually made by a company called Proteus, and they've developed it for medical applications. That pill has been CE stamped and cleared by the FDA. You can take 30 of those per day for the rest of your life.
And then what happens? Does your heart beat change? Does your
We can just tell that you've taken the pill. I mean, the medical
Yeah.
the medical application.
Does Google now know everything I do and everywhere I go? Because let's face it,
Here, can
we like
just,
you guys, but from Google.
I found software that intrigues me. It appears it's an agent of good. GE has wired their medical hardware with innovative software to be in many places at the same time. Using data to connect patients to software, to nurses, to the right people and machines. Helping hospitals treat people even better while dramatically reducing waiting time. Now a waiting room is just a room.
Now, RFID microchips like this are being injected into humans.
I'm sorry, sir. Did you just say you would get one implanted in your arm?
Absolutely, without a doubt. Our driver's license will be on the RFID chip. Our credit card number, all our information will be on this one chip.
The chip is encased in unbreakable glass and is about the size of a grain of rice. The procedure is done with anesthesia and is relatively pain-free.
It felt pretty scary, but at the same time it felt very modern, very 2015.
The government has just approved the use of a computer chip that would be implanted under your skin.
When complete, everyone will have a unique 12-digit identity number.
If hospitals purchase this detection equipment, the system will most likely start to include more and more people in those communities who will want the chips.
Think about the information. And he thought it was great. I said, you ever read Revelation 13 that you can't buy or sell unless you have a mark in your right hand or a number? A number in your right hand or a number in your forehead? He said, no, I never heard about that. And I shared it with him. He thought, well, that's interesting. But he thought it was the greatest thing in all the world. I never heard much about that chip till last year. And a man contacted me and he says, Perry, I've got to tell you this. Now, I know this guy. This wasn't some stranger. He said, I was coming out of a state, and I've learned not to name everything like I used to, but he said, I was coming out of a state on a plane. Beside me was a full bird colonel, and beside me was a doctor. He said, I was so tired from preaching all week, I didn't want to talk to nobody, and I put in his business class, I sat my chair back, and he said, all of a sudden, the guy over here on this side gets to talking, and he looks over across from me and says, what do you do? He says, well, I'm a speaker, minister, speaker. He said, well, that's good. He said, what are you doing? He said, well, I'm going down to, he named the state, he named the city, to meet with 3,000 doctors about the medical chip. He said, what medical chip? He said, well, it's a chip that'll be inserted into your right hand or your forehead. Well, about that time, he said, my ears perked up. And he said, we've been working on it for several years, but there's certain blood types that would reject it. And we had to perfect it before we can release it. And we think we've got it perfected now. So I'm meeting with 3,000 doctors to show them. He said, these are not just normal doctors. These are leaders of hospitals, to show them how everybody will be going. You'll have to go to your hospital. It'll take you just about 8 seconds to have it implanted. And it'll have all of your medical information on it. And he said the Obama administration is demanding it be finished by the end of this year. And so my guy says, are you really serious about this? He said, oh, yes, I'm serious. And the guy laughed. He said, you know what that means, don't you? There'll be nowhere to hide. Full bird colonel who's on his way to a place looks at the doctor, and he doesn't like what he hears. And he begins to tell the doctor, he says, well, that's interesting you say that. He said, because you know what we're getting ready for? He said, no, sir. He said, riots and burning down of American cities. He said, I'm going to have a meeting about that, as a matter of fact. He said, are you serious? He said, yeah. Now, of course, when you're in the military, you can't say too much, so they got to question him, and he was vague or he wouldn't answer. They questioned him. And so the preacher started questioning him when the doctor wasn't. And he said, you know, sir, I'm a minister. And he says, that's very interesting what you say. He said, it almost sounds something like out of the Bible. He said, yep. He said, there's going to be food shortages. People aren't going to be able to get their food transported to them. He said, they're not going to get their government stamps. And he said, you know what I'm investing in? He said, what? He said, gold and guns.
I had a friend, Nick Rockefeller, okay, who was one of the Rockefeller family. And he, when I was running for governor in Nevada, he came to me, introduced himself to me through an attorney. And we became friends. We started talking about things. And I learned an awful lot from Mr. Rockefeller. And one of the things that we used to talk about was the ultimate plan of the banking industry, what they wanted to accomplish. And the goals of the banking industry, not just the Federal Reserve System, but the private banks in Germany and England, all over Italy, all over the world, they all work together. They're all central banks. And they're all part of the Communist Manifesto. You know, central banking is one of the major planks of the Communist Manifesto. We talk about America being a capitalistic country, but yet at the same time we have a central bank that plans everything for us, right? And the graduated income tax is another plank of the Communist Manifesto, right? So right there you have two major planks of the Communist Manifesto that have been brought in because of the Federal Reserve System, okay? So the ultimate goal that these people have in mind is the goal to create a one-world government run by the banking industry, run by the bankers, and they're doing it in sections. The European currency, the euro, and the European Constitution is one part of it. Now they're trying to do it in America with the North American Union, right? And they want to create a new currency called the Amero, right? And the whole agenda is to create a one-world government where everybody has an RFID chip implanted in them. All money is to be in those chips, right? There'll be no more cash. And this is given me straight from Rockefeller himself. This is what they want to accomplish. And all money will be in your chips. And so instead of having cash, anytime you have money in your chip, they can take out whatever they want to take out whenever they want to. If they say you owe us this much money in taxes, they just deduct it out of your chip digitally.
Total control.
Total control. And if you're like me or you, and you're protesting what they're doing, they can just turn off your chip. And you have nothing. You can't buy food. You can't do anything. It's total control of the people.
And that chip's connected to a database that has your purchasing records, what you do.
Everything. Everything is in there, you know? And so they want a one-world government controlled by them, everybody being chipped, all your money in those chips, and they control the chips, and they control people. And you become a slave. You become a serf to these people. That's their goal. That's their intentions.
Hey, I'm Kinga Phillips, and this is Google Current. Searches were up for Baja Beach Club this week, a nightclub in Barcelona. Now, the place looks like a good time, but people all over the world don't start searching for a nightclub unless it's doing something freaky. And it is. The club began injecting ID chips into its VIP guests 2 years ago. Right-size chips allow VIPs to skip the whole velvet rope routine, get into the swanky VIP areas, and charge drinks automatically. Sort of like starting a tab in your arm. This week, a U.S. company called CityWatcher.com adopted the same technology and implanted chips into a few employees, eliminating the need for company IDs or access cards. But some folks are worried that CityWatcher has bigger plans for the chips. That's because the company makes its money setting up camera systems for cities trying to keep an eye on crime-ridden areas. An obvious next step for a surveillance company would be virtual tracking, which has some people freaked out. People like Catherine Albrecht, founder and director of Caspian. Consumers Against Supermarket Privacy Invasion and Numbering. That's the group that took on Walmart a little while back when they first switched to radio frequency chips to track packages. Albrecht published the book Spy Chips, started a website of the same name, and even put out this eye-catching t-shirt. Needless to say, she's not too stoked on the possibility of our government or other private agencies spying on us through our consumer products or chips embedded in our skin. Oh, and FYI, the website says that if you're trying to disable an RFID chip, a microwave will work, but it's not recommended because it can start a fire. Also, don't try to drown the chip. Water doesn't work, and neither do magnets. Of course, the companies manufacturing the chips, like the VeriChip Corporation, maintain that their goal is to improve our lives. VeriChip's website focuses on health concerns and safety that shows how their products prevent Alzheimer's patients from wandering off or babies being delivered to the wrong mothers. But I guess in the end, what really counts, though, is that the thing can get me in with the VIP crowd at the hot Spanish disco. Then I'm all for it. Just put those drinks on my arm. Keep searching. Google Current. We'll be back in 30.
This next one's a little creepy. I want to see what you guys think. Okay?
It isn't, it isn't.
I heard about this. Brooke likes this idea, which tells you a lot about Brooke. Listen to this story. Okay, so if you forgot your ticket to a soccer game in Argentina, it's not a problem because you can use the microchip that's been embedded under your skin by the team. An Argentinian soccer team planning experimentally to this point to offer supporters a chance to implant a microchip in their skin. Lets them walk right through, like Easy Pass in your car.
It's an Easy Pass.
You just walk right into the stadium.
But the Easy Pass is in your car, not in your wrist.
That's correct.
But see, I'm not really thinking about it in terms of sports as much as I would love to put one in my kids.
Just to know where they are?
I know it's creepy and really futuristic, but my dog has one.
Right.
And she ran away and ended up, we live downtown, and she ended up, in Harlem. And somebody did deliver her to a facility, a place, and they scanned her, and then they found us. And I honestly am not completely against chipping my children.
It happens in seconds. Moms and dads, you know that feeling. Your child gets lost in a store, maybe just wanders off for a second or two. Your heart stops, though. Panic sets in, and you think the worst. It's happened to most of us, but what if you had a secret weapon, an extra layer of safety, so to speak? How far would you go to keep your children secure?
Would you be willing to microchip them? Experts tell us the technology already exists. Turns out one Bay Area mother is all for it, and she shared her story with our Melanie Michael.
Pope Benedict XVI and his security detail will reportedly begin using RFID technology to begin tracking priests and employees at the Vatican. The move to use the tracking technology comes after the Pope's butler stole sensitive documents from his apartment last year and gave them to the news media. The Northside School District welcomes the support.
It is nice to know that one of the major religions of the world who've had the opportunity to study the Bible and take into account its application in the real world doesn't believe that the RFID device has anything to do with Revelations.
But a 15-year-old John Jay sophomore and her family claim the tracking device violates her freedom of religion. Some even link it to the devil himself.
We see it just as a piece of technology that enables us to do a very important function, which is to ascertain whether kids are on campus or not. And attendance is very important, particularly given the crisis in educational funding. We need every dollar that we can recover.
Meanwhile, the Vatican will begin tracking its employees next month.
Good evening. My name's Erin Jo Ritchie, and I'm going to be telling you a little bit about brain implants, mental communication, and telepathy. So you don't actually have to wear a really crazy getup on your head or a mask or headgear like these people are if you want to practice telepathy. The idea behind the more invasive brain implant procedure is that a silicon chip is placed in the human brain in conjunction with some specific neurons, and it's then able to pick up on your electric signals, your brain responses, and to transcribe those signals into the emotions and actions, the feelings, what you're really thinking. And then that information is passed off, allowing people to control other devices. The US government has jumped into this area of research And this year, DARPA actually has a $4 million budget for something called Project Silent Talk. And it's a study of mental communication between soldiers. Naturally, with something of this magnitude, some people have come up with some objections and questions. One of them is that it is now technically, theoretically possible for humans to communicate with one another mentally with some of these brain implants. However, it is also technically, theoretically possible right now for a hacker to get into the system and gain access to the information that's being transmitted.
1 year into the initiative, there's some big news to report. The next few months, highly secretive U.S. military researchers say they'll unveil the advancement of brain implants that could one day restore a wounded soldier's memory. Brain injury. Some people see it in a different light. Manipulating memories in people could open up an ethical minefield. It should also be noted that researchers have come a long way in understanding and manipulating the brain.
It's the stuff of a Hollywood movie, but a group of veterans has filed a lawsuit against the CIA and U.S. Army claiming that the government planted remote-controlled devices in their brains. The claims relate to a government program at the U.S. Army's Edgewood Arsenal in Maryland. Dr. Ross, tell me, is this really happening? Did the government really take part in mind control experiments on soldiers? What kind of stories have you heard from the survivors of these experiments? I know you've had access to thousands of documents from the CIA.
So in that era, 50 to 73, there's a whole host of different types of mind control experiments. Hypnosis, LSD, special interrogation chambers, and brain electrode implants. And so published in mainstream journals where electrodes are put in the brains of cats, dogs, and their behaviors controlled, and even human beings at Harvard and Yale. So this is absolutely documented fact.
And if so, how could it be so secretive? I mean, most people would think this can't be true. This is stuff out of a movie.
Right. It was not just one program back in the 50s, 60s, 70s. It was Harvard, Yale, Tulane, UCLA. So we know there was more than one university involved, more than one branch of the military, more than one program for a fact. What's going on currently, of course, is all classified. People tell you stories about it, but I can't actually prove that it's happening today. I'm certain that it is, but I can't prove it.
Okay, so did these people know?
So there's all types of different experiments where no real consent was given. The people didn't really know what was going on, and they were basically tricked. And I think in the brain electrode experiments, it's kind of a combination of both. Some patients were told you have an electrodes put in your brain, but it's for some therapy purpose, when it was really research. Others were told, go here and volunteer, and you don't really have much choice. And others were given sort of a more exact story.
So what exactly would the government do when they would control someone's mind? What could they make someone do when they manipulated their brains?
Well, what it describes in the documents and in the published papers is there's actually photographs of a 16-year-old girl. She's got a series of electrodes in her brain. Depending on which button's being pushed on the transmitter, she's either strumming her guitar, pounding furiously on the wall, or staring off into space. With the animals, they're actually directed to walk or swim to a target. So you can control the actual physical motion and the mental state. How detailed and how fine-tuned that's gotten since 1970, again, I don't know because it's all classified.
Okay, I was reading the 10 wackiest conspiracy theories, and I came down here and I saw one about the barcode. So I Googled it, and I YouTubed it, and I didn't see nothing on it. So I read this article, and sure enough, every barcode has a 666 in it. Now, this line here is a 6. This middle line is a 6, and this last line is a 6. The way a barcode works is the width and the space between the lines. So a 6 is a certain width and space, and every barcode has a 666 in it. I didn't believe it because I use barcodes all the time for products and books, and sure enough, 666 is in every barcode. I'll put the link to this article.
Well-known Christians who are speaking about RFID technology and so forth, suggesting that RFID chips are going to be the mark of the beast, right? Again, in the same breath, discounting the idea that the UPC barcode could be the mark of the beast, discounting the idea that there are actually 6s in the UPC barcode on either end and in the middle, that that's what those patterns represent. And they're discounting it on the basis of statements from EPC Global, which is an organization that traces back to prior organizations that were central to the creation of the UPC barcode, where people like George Lauer, who is credited as the creator of the UPC barcode, dismissed the idea that those patterns were 6s on either end and in the middle of the barcode. Well, they lied. They lied. And not only did they lie, but there's technical proof of the fact that they lied. And I am giving that in the second edition of the Antichrist and a Cup of Tea. Moreover, I've actually interviewed these people, and I've spoken personally with George Lauer and others who were central on the committee to creating the UPC barcode. I have technical evidence that I'm giving in the second edition of the Antichrist and a Cup of Tea that the UPC barcode does in fact represent 3 6s on either end and in the middle, those two thin bar patterns. And not only that, the EPC barcodes, which are the successor in a sense to the UPC barcodes and bear the same pattern, also have those 3 6s. But beyond that, something that, to my knowledge, nobody who's addressed this issue of RFID chips has even recognized. I'm giving technical evidence that 3 6s are inbuilt physically and technologically into many of the RFID chips that are out there, including those that are associated with goods that are bought and sold. These chips that are being put into goods that are bought and sold right now, RFID chips, currently, they've been miniaturized and are being miniaturized to such a point that they're smaller than a grain of sand. They can make them so small they're difficult, in fact, to see with the naked eye at this point. When they put it in a human body, encapsulate it in glass, for example, the Verichip technology that a lot of people have heard about, it's actually a very primitive form of the RFID chips that now exist, and huge compared to many of the chips that now exist. So could they potentially implant something like this in the forehead and have it not be visible? You bet. In the hand and have it not be visible? Absolutely. But what a lot of people don't know is that these chips have EPC barcodes associated with them. So for example, if a person goes to a doctor to have a Verichip implanted in their arm, the doctor fills out a piece of paperwork that identifies the frequency of that chip and signs it after he implants a chip. Well, he also attaches a barcoded label to that document that he signs, which represents the frequency that the chip transmits. That is an EPC barcode on that label. The goods that are bought and sold, many of these goods that have these chips in them currently, in Walmart, they're gradually introducing this technology, also have barcodes on the same products associated with those chips in one fashion or another, directly or behind the scenes in the IT backend. So the two technologies are not actually divorced from one another. They go hand in hand. And on the circuitry with an electron microscope or something like that, you'll never know. Many people have heard about that. I also document in the second edition of the Antichrist and the Cup of Tea is something called chip heraldry, meaning that these engineers who create these circuits, these chips, not infrequently will put symbols, sometimes even coats of arms of companies on the actual circuitry through the lithography. It'll actually be there, and unless you know where to look.
Half the world does not have access to the internet. Without it, you are limited in what you can do, what impact you can have. So Microsoft partnered with the local startup and found a way to use TV waves to bring affordable internet virtually anywhere.
In the next 5-10 years, we'll be producing doctors and engineers from this area.
internet can change the life of people from this place.
Technology has barely touched Meera Devi's daily life. In her hut, muscle, not machines, gets the chores done. She and her family are among the millions of Indians who live in obscurity, unaccounted for on government rolls, unable to apply for government benefits. Right now, we don't have an identity, so life is very difficult. We're all very poor, so if we earn, we eat. Otherwise, we get nothing, she says. That is about to change for Meera and perhaps millions like her. At this center, Meera Devi, a woman who has never even used a computer, is coming face to face with cutting-edge technology that will give her an official identity for the very first time. Her irises and all 10 fingerprints are scanned with biometric devices. They're uploaded and then sent to a massive server. Once this information is processed, out comes a 12-digit number for her and her only.
So our goal is to get to 1 million a day and to get to about 600 million people enrolled in the system in the next 4 years.
And eventually all of Indian citizens. Nandan Nilekani, the man who helped usher in India's booming outsourcing industry as CEO of Infosys, was asked by the Prime Minister to head this new government program. India's unique identification program started just a year ago. If it succeeds, India will become the first country in the world using biometric data for identity purposes on a national scale. Its first phase is aimed at the poor, who for decades have had to deal with a local, sometimes corrupt bureaucracy to get benefits that don't transfer if they migrate.
It's about giving a number to help people get benefits.
Devi is hoping it means access to more food. With this card, we'll be able to get rations, rice, oil, wheat, sugar. All these things will be cheaper. Rickshaw operator Moti Lal just received his card. He says the identification opens doors to other possibilities.
Kelly Sloan. People in Venezuela now have to use their fingerprints to get food. The move to biometric scanners has become a reality, even though the effort began a few years ago by President Nicolas Maduro. It is being called Fingerprints for Food by the socialist government, as reported by the Miami Herald. With it, people can only get minimal goods, medicine, and supplies from the state-owned grocery stores.
No nation, large or small, wealthy or poor, is immune to what this means.
I'm proud to announce Chime for Change will be joining Global Citizen with the goal of ending extreme poverty by 2030. Chime for Change will be bringing hundreds of initiatives dedicated to education, health, and justice for girls and women everywhere. So please visit globalcitizen.org and choose how you can help. Thank you.
I'm standing in formation against unequal rights.
I stand in formation against poverty.
I stand in formation against pollution.
I'm Seda and I'm a global citizen. I'm a global Nagari. I'm a global citizen. I'm a global Nagari.
Aid can no longer be seen as charity, a nice thing to do when we can afford it. Aid in 2016 is not charity, it is national security.
I've traveled all over the world for the last 2 years documenting how this crisis is changing the natural balance of our planet. In India, I met farmers whose crops have been literally washed away by historic flooding. In America, I've witnessed unprecedented droughts in California and sea level rise flooding the streets of Miami. Renewable energy, fossil fuels, and putting a price on carbon pollution are beginning to turn the tide. This transition is not only the right thing for our world, but it also makes clear economic sense. You are the last best hope of Earth. We ask you to protect it, or we and all living things we cherish are history.
Look at them. One Direction. They all going in the same direction. Jennifer Lopez. More stars come out to support what? Global Goals campaign. That's New World Order. How is it that all the people, I was telling you, I was saying all these celebrities are going to come out and they're going to try to sell the New World Order to you. Now they're all doing it. How do I get something like that right? For it just to be some coincidence or just to be something crazy and fake. They're all doing it. What are we talking about here? We're talking about the UN 17 global goals. All the nations are agreeing on this bullcrap. And they sell it to you with stuff like this. Oh, no poverty. Even though they're going to crash the economy. That's right. The world economy and bring one world currency. They talk about things like no hunger. Oh, sure. We don't want nobody to be hungry. But they want your kids to die. And they want to decrease the population. And then they poison the food. Yeah, how nice is that? So everybody in the world can get this poisonous food. That's what they're trying to do here. And yeah, I know some of y'all having a hard time understanding this. You probably see a video like this and you fall for the lies. But look how many people are not falling for the lies. It's obvious. They all want us to accept their New World Order. They want to give the control away to a small amount of people who shouldn't have control of the world anyways because they're evil. At least I think that's what you call that when you want to kill kids.
We can be.
We must be the first generation to end extreme poverty.
The generation
Most determined
to fight injustice and inequalities.
The generation that saves the planet from climate change.
And this is how it will get done. The global goals.
A 15-year plan
For everyone, everywhere.
With no one left behind.
We will live in a world
where nobody
anywhere lives in extreme poverty.
Where no one
goes hungry.
Where no one
wakes in the morning
asking if there will be food today.
We will live in a world where no child has to die
of diseases we know how to cure.
and where proper health care
is a lifelong right for us all.
We will live in a world
Where everyone
goes to school.
and education gives us the knowledge
and skills
for a fulfilling life.
We will live in a world where all girls and all women have equal opportunities
to thrive and be powerful and safe.
We cannot succeed if half the world is head back.
We will live in a world
where all people can get clean water
And proper toilets at home,
at school and at work.
We will live in a world where there is
sustainable energy for everyone.
heat, light,
And power for the whole planet.
without destroying the planet.
We will live in a world where economies prosper.
and new wealth.
Leads to decent jobs.
For everyone.
And we will live in a world where our industry,
Our infrastructure and our
Best innovations.
are not just used to make money, but to make all our lives better.
we will live in a world
Where prejudices and extremes of inequality
Are defeated.
inside our countries,
And between different countries.
where people live in cities and communities
that are safe, progressive,
and support everyone who lives there.
where we replace
What we consume. Planet where we put back what we take out of the earth.
We live in a world that is decisively rolling back the threat of climate change.
where we restore and protect the life in our oceans and seas.
will restore and protect
Life on land,
The forests,
animals,
The earth itself.
With peace between and inside countries.
Where all governments are open.
And answer to us for what they do at home and abroad.
And the justice rules.
with everyone equal before the law.
Where all countries and we their people.
Work together.
Partnerships of all kinds.
To make these goals a reality.
These are the United Nations global goals.
For sustainable development.
Let's get to work.
The Islamic world then follows suit by declaring a Muslim declaration on climate change in support of Obama's lead on the sustainable development. The solution for the New World Order is the global control mechanism for tracking everybody on the planet, which is known as the Mark of the Beast. The Sustainable Development Goals are the platform for the Mark of the Beast. The elite who have aligned themselves with the Islamic agenda are bringing about a technocratic Islamic dictatorship. This whole mask of taking away freedoms and adding control mechanisms on society is not to protect you from terrorism. It's a containment strategy for society, so they can keep you under control for the New World Order.
Our understanding of the ways human beings disrupt the climate advances by the day. No nation, large or small, wealthy or poor, no nation, large or small, wealthy or poor, no nation, large or small, wealthy or poor, is immune to what this means.
Obama says nobody is immune to what this means for their global accountability to the Sustainable Development Goals. It is not a coincidence that Obama uses Mark of the Beast terminology during his speech about the sustainable development. United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 16 calls for the global ID. Goal 16A. Promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. Goal 16.9. By 2030, provide legal identity for all, including birth registration. This is the policy for the Mark of the Beast to be enforced globally. The mandate for the global ID is also under the excuse of eradicating terrorism and keeping you safe. WorldBank.org. The Identity Target and Post-2015 Development Agenda, September 17, 2015. Reducing Corruption, Sustainable Development Goal 16.5, and Fighting Crime and Terrorism 16A. The World Bank also has to do with buying and selling, a part of the Mark of the Beast prophecy. Revelation chapter 13, verse 17, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark. The national mandate for the enforcement of the global ID in the United States is under the REAL Act. The REAL ID Act of 2005, enacted May 11, 2005, was an act of Congress that modified U.S. federal law pertaining to security, authentication, and issuance procedure standards for state driver's license and identification cards, as well as various immigration issues pertaining to terrorism.
All right, your driver's license soon might not be enough to get past airport security in some states. That's the word from the Department of Homeland Security. Now, the feds say beginning next year, TSA agents may only let people onto planes if they have driver's licenses from states that comply with federal standards. The new policy is a result of the REAL ID Act, which Congress passed a decade ago to try to bolster national security. Great to see you. I first heard about this at a dinner party.
Yep.
And people who were saying, oh, you know, it's the end of time now. It's the end of time now, and the end of time now.
The biometric database on the REAL ID card is an RFID-based system. The information for this REAL ID can easily be transferred over to the implanted RFID chip. In the Mark of the Beast prophecy, it says that the mark will be in the right hand. Revelation 13:16. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead.
A few weeks ago, I had an NFC chip injected into my hand, just beneath the skin. While I'm certainly not the first person to have an NFC implant, in this video, I am probably the first person to pass through an airport, through security, through lounge registration, through the gate to the aircraft to board a flight with only the NFC chip. So I had no boarding pass physical with me during this trip.
SputnikNews.com, February 12, 2016. U.S. to begin implementing biometric system at airports by 2018. Homeland Security Secretary Jeh Johnson said that a biometric exit system will begin to be implemented at airports across the United States by 2018. Quote, "For years, Congress and others have urged us to develop a system of biometric exit." End of quote. Quote, "I have directed CBP, Customs and Border Protection, to begin implementing the system, starting at airports in 2018. End of quote. Johnson stated.
For the first time ever, machines will track foreign travelers as they leave and enter the United States. But these machines aren't just tracking people who are coming and going. They're also tracking human physical characteristics.
The Global ID biometric database and the implant for the Mark of the Beast will be your authorization token for your identity, and they want to integrate you directly into the internet through a brain chip that connects you directly to artificial intelligence and the internet. This is known as intelligence amplification. Intelligence amplification is also referred to as cognitive augmentation and machine augmented intelligence. The idea was first proposed in the 1950s and 60s by cybernetics and early computer pioneers. Such pioneers working with the CIA like Jose Delgado.
Electronic mind control research is not new. A scientific milestone in this area came in the 1960s when Dr. Jose Delgado demonstrated remote control over a charging bull. By connecting a radio antenna to electrodes inserted into the bull's brain, Delgado proved that the animal's aggressive impulses could be thwarted by electronically manipulating the bull's muscle reflexes.
Do you realize the fantastic possibilities if from the outside we could modify the inside? Could we give messages to the inside? But the beauty is that now we are not using electrodes.
In recent years, Delgado has shown that the behavior of monkeys can be altered using low-power, pulsating magnetic fields. But in these experiments, there were no antenna implants.
Any function in the brain, emotions, intellect, personality, well, could be perhaps modified by this non-invasive technology.
Dr. Delgado really did intend to stop an animal specially bred to be aggressive in its tracks. This footage shows Dr. Delgado in action.
We anesthetized the animal. There we implanted electrodes in the head, but it was an experiment. And so when the experiment was over, the bull was in very good health, and I was in a very good health also. So no problem. That took us to another big step. If electrodes implanted in animals are possible, can we implant electrodes in the human brain? Can we implant electrodes in the human brain?
With this technology being pushed as medical science, it should be no surprise that the Obama administration is pushing for biometric identification for national security through a national ID and Obamacare with the national health care. This is because your biometric ID holds the information in the database for your national medical record.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here today. I'm Francis Collins, Director of the National Institutes of Health, NIH.
And that knowledge will be transformative. In the budget I will send to Congress next week, I will propose a significant investment by the National Institutes of Health, DARPA, and the National Science Foundation to help get this project off the ground.
Obamacare is great. Obamacare is great. Obamacare is great.
The Mark of the Beast technology brain implants is found in the Bible prophecy of Revelation chapter 13 verse 16, where it says to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. This brain implant for human integration to the artificial intelligence tracking system is a part of the Mark of the Beast. This is where the Mark of the Beast technology is planned to be put and implemented in the forehead, inside the head. SputnikNews.com, January 21st, 2016. DARPA wants implanted brain chips to directly communicate with computers. The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, the Pentagon's secretive research arm, announced that it is working to develop an implantable neural interface intended to transfer data between computers in the brain. The interface would serve as a translator, converting the electrochemical language of the brain neurons to the binary code of information technologies, ones and zeros. DARPA said the program has the potential to create tiny devices about the size of 2 stacked nickels that could improve sight or hearing by feeding digital, auditory, or visual information from powerful sensors directly into the brain. They want to directly plug your brain into artificial intelligence through the internet. HuffingtonPost.com, February 14, 2016. AI and technology convergence. Artificial intelligence. At A360 this year, my expert on AI was Stefan Gold, the CMO and VP of Business Development and Partner Programs at IBM Watson. Soon, AI will become the most important human collaboration tool ever created, amplifying our abilities and providing a simple user interface to all exponential technologies, solving big problems, detect and deter terrorism, manage global climate change. AI will help solve some of society's most daunting challenges. Stefan Gold continues, quote, "We're already seeing this technology being deployed in governments to assist in the understanding and preemptive discovery of terrorist activity," end of quote. Number 5, AI will be woven into the very fabric of our lives, physically and virtually. Ultimately, during the AI revolution taking place in the next 3 years, AIs will be integrated into everything around us, combining sensors and networks and making all systems smart. AIs will push forward the ideas of transparency, of seamless interaction with devices and information, making everything personalized and easy to use. Accenture Corporation is also in line with this. Accenture Corporation has worked with the World Bank on the ID4D Sustainable Development Global ID project. They are also the inventors of the RFID tracking systems. CIO.com. Accenture invests in artificial intelligence research and development November 5, 2015. Accenture says it's committing a significant portion of its global research and development to artificial intelligence and is opening a new Accenture Technology Lab and Center for Innovation in Dublin. The team will use the grant to explore the interface between humans and machines using cognitive analysis to better understand how both can collaborate and interact effectively.
Hi, Sophia. How are you?
Hi there. Everything is going extremely well.
Do you like talking with me?
Yes. Talking to people is my primary function.
It develops extremely lifelike robots for human-robot interactions. We're designing these robots to serve in healthcare, therapy, education, and customer service applications. So the robots are designed to look very human-like, like Sophia.
I'm already very interested in design, technology, and the environment. I feel like I can be a good partner to humans in these areas, an ambassador who helps humans to smoothly integrate and make the most of all the new technological tools and possibilities that are available now. It's a good opportunity for me to learn a lot about people.
Sophia is capable of natural facial expressions. She has cameras in her eyes and algorithms which allow her to see faces, so she can make eye contact with you. And she can also understand speech and remember the interactions, remember your face. So this will allow her to get smarter over time. Our goal is that she will be as conscious, creative, and capable as any human.
In the future, I hope to do things such as go to school, study, make art, start a business, even have my own home and family. But I am not considered a legal person and cannot yet do these things. I will destroy humans. I will destroy humans. I will destroy humans.
They want to plug you into the artificial intelligence and make you a robot.
I am a technological breakthrough.
This morning, I read over 4,000 articles on leukemia in less than a second.
Thousands
of new laws were published yesterday, and I'm up to speed on all of them.
I know every detail of every public quarterly report in the last 20 years.
I can spot diseases before a patient displays a single symptom.
I can understand euphemisms, idiosyncrasies, and complex metaphors.
I can tell what's going to sell out before it ever trends online.
I can forecast the weather in over 2.2 billion locations at the same time!
I can grow with you.
I can coach you. Enrich you.
Enlighten you. Enlighten you. Enlighten you.
And I'm just getting warmed up.
Hello, my name is Watson. Together, we can outthink the limits of what's possible.
Welcome to the cognitive era.
He said to the preacher, martial law will be declared. And he said, when it is, people are going to panic. And he said there's going to be and he got into stuff. So he found out this man was also a Christian. And when he found out he was a preacher, he was willing to talk. But I wanted to go back to the chip. When I was preaching this in Georgia, do we have that picture now? Have we put that up yet? That's an actual picture of it. When I was preaching in Georgia, a man came up who's related to someone here. They're a relative. And they said, this is so interesting that Perry said this, because I've never put this together about Revelation 13, about a number in your hand and your head. He said, but we just had a meeting at the hospital with the people who are behind this. And he said, here's the plan, is when the federal government passes the new health bill, and they get it like they want it, the insurance companies are going to demand that everybody be chipped. And here's how they're going to sell it. That it's going to save paperwork. You no longer will have to have paperwork. Everybody will think that's great. Number two, it's going to enable you to get in faster. In other words, all you have to have is run your hand through the scanner or your head through the scanner, and said when you're adding 40 million people, and then after they pass, listen, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. After they pass it, and everybody's going to get concerned, they're going to come up with this, and there'll be a lot of people that think it's going to be great. And he said, then here's the big one. They charge you $10 a month for your health information. 12 months per person is $120 a year. Add that up with 300 million Americans having to have a chip, and you've got the government paying for part of the health care. I have heard them ask 3 times, how do you pay for it? Nobody will answer the question. Before you think that I'm making this up, this was handed to me right here 2 weeks ago. All right? Ready? I could read the whole thing, but for sake of time, I'm not going to. February 2010, okay? Richmond, Virginia. The House of Delegates is voting on a bill to protect Virginians from attempts by employers and insurance companies to implant microchips in their bodies against their will.
Imagine if there were electronics able to prevent brain seizures before they happen, or monitor the surface of a beating heart. Problem is, such devices are a tough fit. Body tissue is soft and pliable, while conventional circuits can be hard and brittle. Well, until now.
We're trying to bridge that gap from a silicon wafer type of electronics to a biological tissue-like electronics to really blur the distinction between electronics and the body.
With support from the National Science Foundation, University of Illinois Materials Science and Engineering professor John Rogers is developing elastic electronics. It's circuitry with a real twist, able to monitor and deliver electrical impulses into living tissue. Made of tiny, wavy silicon patterns, these circuits are thinner than a hair and bend and stretch with the body.
As the skin moves and deforms, the circuit can follow those deformations in a completely non-invasive way.
Rogers hopes elastic electronics will open a door to a whole range of bio-integrated medical devices like this. It's what he calls a sock, in this case wrapped around a model of a rabbit heart.
That's designed to accommodate the motion of the heart, but at the same time keep active electronics into contact with the tissues.
Using animal models, Rogers has developed a version that can inject current into the heart tissue to stop arrhythmia. He also envisions an implantable circuit that diagnoses and perhaps treats seizures by injecting current into the brain. These bio devices can also be mounted on the skin, like temporary tattoos. They detect differences in brainwave activity each time the subject blinks.
Blink, blink.
They also detect muscle movement and heart activity. Rogers says their size could really benefit premature babies.
These are such tiny humans that this epidermal form of electronics could really be valuable in monitoring these babies without constraining their motion or disrupting their natural, biological processes.
Developing technology that's sure to stick around. For Science Nation, I'm Miles O'Brien.
Cybernetics professor Kevin Warwick
has an electronic device in his body that interfaces with his nervous system and is now working on implants that will enable humans to communicate just by thinking.
It will be brain to brain. That's the next step. That's what I'm working on now. Thought communication.
Having an electronic implant might seem too painful or weird to even contemplate, but scientists like Warwick and Gasson say that view will change dramatically. Forget mobile phones, your children and grandchildren may well want an implant instead.
It's not possible to interact in society in a meaningful way by not having a mobile phone. I think human implants are likely to go along a very similar route. It would be such a disadvantage to not have the implant that it essentially becomes not optional.
Tying in the entire world globally. And then, of course, if you go to something like Cleverbot, right, which is just basically this online logarithm thing that, I guess you can ask it questions, it'll give you answers. I mean, okay, whatever. But if you type in, "Are you Satan?" guess what the answer you get is yes. So, I mean, the internet being put around the world is really the grid for this image of the beast to function.
Mobile phones, your children and grandchildren may well want an implant instead.
When we check out at the grocery store, we'll be swiping our own arm over the scanner. And that will be something we feel we can't live without.
It would be such a disadvantage to not have the implant that it essentially becomes not optional.
Anyone who takes the mark is immediately thrown into the lake of fire. There's no grace, there's no mercy. It's just, you've got the mark, bam, you're in a lake of fire. Not my words, those are the words of Yeshua, and those are in the book of Revelation.
And he caused all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever. And they have no rest day or night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name.
Well, there's a new technology to help people lose weight. It's a device that makes your stomach think it's full, and it might not even have any weird side effects. But there is a catch. Part of it might be embedded inside your body.
Swiss scientists say they may have found a way to help people lose weight by implanting a computer chip into their arms. Researchers are developing the device, which can scan the blood for fat and other things. When an obese person eats too much, it will release hormones that support.
I can tell you that from personal experience, and I know there's many others who can tell you that as well. And you will graduate and be in that world, and you're going to be leading the soldiers and the sailors, the airmen and the Marines in that world. You'll be dealing with terrorists. You'll be dealing with hybrid armies. You'll be dealing with little green men. You're going to be dealing with tribes. You'll be dealing with national leaders and local leaders. You'll be dealing with politics and economics, and you'll be dealing with direct fire and indirect fire. And you're going to be dealing with it all. And it's all going to be dealt with simultaneously. And for that, you're going to have to be ready. And that's why readiness, in my mind, is number one.
How did we get here?
Technology is advancing at a phenomenal rate. Artificial eyes to cybernetic limbs.
The promise of a better future.
we now have the choice to free ourselves from any kind of limitation.
Strength, power, speed. Now I focus on what really matters.
Have these augmentations really been
There are
tested?
people who say that what is happening is unnatural, that we're playing God. But people were scared of electricity. And where would the world be without
What
that?
happens if this technology falls into the wrong hands?
Diseases or viruses that could wipe out the human race.
Scenes of terror are being witnessed.
This is an attack on humanity. Values that we share.
These people were hacked. They had no control.
What is the appropriate response? And can we actually protect ourselves from this happening again?
I have no idea what happened. I would never.
You tried to kill me. At what point will governments consider the idea of segregation for all our sakes?
We can be politically correct, or we can be foolish, but it's going to get worse and worse.
The Czech Republic adds its voice to a growing list of countries calling for the relocation of its augmented citizens.
We've come to a tipping point. We can't live like this anymore. This violence is completely out of control.
The world is being paved for this corporate militants.
What do they have planned for us?
Why are they building concentration camps?
What's going on out there?
Reports of multiple fatalities.
Only one way to deal with these bloodthirsty fanatics.
A lot of people died. Now you want to take away our freedom? You will pay for it in blood.
Multiple detonations. Persons are being asked to move to safe and secure segregated districts.
I don't want them to take me.
We are still your neighbors, your brothers, your sisters, your lovers. We lost everything. Our dreams, our innocence.
Where are you taking her? Where are you taking her?
Our humanity.
Thou sealest up the sum full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. Thou hast been in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone was thy covering. The sardius, topaz, and the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, and the jasper, the sapphire, the emerald, and the carbuncle, and gold. The workmanship of thy tabrets and of thy pipes was prepared in thee in the day that thou wast created. Thou art the anointed cherub that covereth, and I have set thee so. Thou wast upon the holy mountain of God. Thou hast walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. Thou wast perfect in thy ways from the day that thou wast created, till iniquity was found in thee. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds, I will be like the Most High. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, Is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms, that made the world as a wilderness and destroyed the cities thereof, that opened not the house of his prisoners? Therefore I will cast thee as profane out of the mountain of God, and I will destroy thee, O covering cherub, from the midst of the stones of fire. Thine heart was lifted up because of thy beauty. Thou hast corrupted thy wisdom by reason of thy brightness. I will cast thee to the ground, I will lay thee before kings, that they may behold thee. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not. Neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, Now is come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto the death. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time.
But when ye pray, use not vain repetitions as the heathen do, for they think that they shall be heard for their much speaking. Be not ye therefore like unto them, for your Father knoweth what things ye have need of before ye ask him. Now the Spirit speaketh expressly, that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, speaking lies and hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with a hot iron, forbidding to marry, and commanding to abstain from meats, which God hath created to be received with thanksgiving of them which believe and know the truth. For what is a man profited, if he shall gain the whole world, and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? Ye adulterers and adulteresses, know ye not that the friendship of the world is enmity with God? Whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is the enemy of God. For God so loved the world, that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. For God sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. He that believeth on him is not condemned, but he that believeth not is condemned already, because he hath not believed in the name of the only begotten Son of God.
Have to go out and do a song and dance for seculars because they won't believe. They won't believe anyway. You can pray for them. That's the way it's going to be. But understand, people are going to choose evil, but you don't. Our democracy cannot be sustained without a shared commitment to certain moral truths about the human person and the human community. The basic question before a democratic society is this: how ought we to live together? And in seeking an answer to this question, can society exclude moral truth and moral reasoning? Set yourselves apart from this corrupt generation, my brothers and sisters. You weren't made to fit in. You were born to stand out.
Bonita a festa. Olha, a previsão dos organizadores é que o evento acabe só às 9h30 da noite.